TheTaraReade, and yes, I am still in Moscow, Russia. Happy to be here. And as many of you know, I got my full political asylum restoration, and I'm very appreciative of that. We've been able to keep going with the show, which is really wonderful, and looking at the producers in the U.S. are still able to work with. I know this week has been another tough week, very violent week, dark and frightening. We have someone who can bring some light to it, and who is a tireless voice for Julian Assange. He is a activist, but a comedian. He has been a lifetime in the entertainment world. He has his own radio show called On the Fly with Randy Credico, and he's here with me. He's a wonderful, dear friend. I'm so honored to have him back. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Tara. How are you? Nice to be here again.
It's so nice to see you. And I just am so in awe of all the things that you do. And I've been following, the advocacy work with Assange, but you most recently just spoke again for the second time. Is it the second time to the UN Security Council?
No, it's my first time. I've been there with other people and I've seen them speak, like Roger Waters and Max Blumenthal and Ray McGovern, but this is the first time I spoke at the UN.
Yes, and we had our friend Shay Bowes was able to speak at the UN Security Council quite eloquently. I think Dmitry Polyansky said it was one of the best he ever heard. So tell me what brought you, Randy, to the UN Security Council for this particular visit and what you talked about.
Well, I was there talking about, ostensibly it was about accountability of weapons going to Ukraine, wherever weapons go, accountability of weapons. They had a guy on before me from the UN that laid out where weapons are going here and there. But I was there because the previous speakers that have been there all year, I don't know if Shay had been in Donetsk witnessing what was going on there, but I was actually, at least someone that was live there had actually been there and saw the damage that was done to civilian targets by Ukrainian forces. I don't know if they're Azov or whatever, or breakaway forces, but neo-Nazis, but from the front, they had hit a target. They targeted the hotel just before I got there. They hit an open air market, a university, and other places, and then I covered it. And then the day that I left, they hit the biggest Russian Orthodox church cathedral. And it's always the same. It's a double attack, as they call it. They hit it, and then 20 minutes later, when EMS personnel show up and care for the wounded and carry out the dead, they hit again. So that's been their MO, and they've been doing it for a long time. 20,000 people have died since 2014. So that's what I was there to talk about. Along the way, I mentioned some other things, like I was afraid that this might be my last good meal when I stopped in Dubai, because what I heard that the Russian economy, there's going to be bread lines and all of that. And when I got there to 3 days, I said, this is Disneyland compared to New York. And the British ambassador, acting ambassador, was not pleased with that. He called a point of order. But that's really about my experience there and Mariupol. And so they had someone who gave some eyewitness testimony to back up, what we all know. And no journalists will go there in the mainstream media to check it out. So that's why I went there, to see for myself. And I came back, I told people about it. And the next thing you know, by 6 months later, they asked me to do this, and I did. And 18 minutes without reading the speech, by the way. I wrote a speech, but I said I can't read. I have a hard time reading, and I've never done that as a performer in 50 years. So it's not my strong suit. Reading, it sounds like you're reading. So I just kind of winged it, extemporized for the 18 minutes. And it was, it's quite an experience to do that. I think that's it. I did the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson 40 years ago talked about the proxy war in Nicaragua. And here it is 40 years later, talking about the proxy war at the UN, the proxy war in Ukraine. So that's the bookends. those are the bookings.
Yeah, yeah, and I know you later on you have to go to your show real quick. So after you leave, what we'll do is we're going to show our audience some of the clips from the UN talk so they can see more of it. The fam that's joined us to watch this program today. So stay tuned for later for that. You know, I really wanted to bring up something else that's, you know, caught my attention. But before I do, one more question about the UN Security Council. I noticed when some people are up there, they tend to kind of go after them. Like they went after Roger Waters pretty hard. They went after one of my colleagues, Dan Kovalik, who spoke and made personal attacks on him. It was a representative from Ukraine. Did you have any of the, you know, other delegation members go after you in a personal way, or were they pretty straightforward and just going to make the argument back against what you were saying?
I don't listen, I'm a longtime civil rights, activist. I ran the Kunstler Fund for 15 years. I got a pretty good record there. I don't know what they were going to attack. All I did was tell them what I saw there and what are you going to do? First of all, they all have their pre-written, revised and rehashed and passed around the committee to see what they say. And these things are all typed up and they read it. You know what I mean? Some standard statement saying you're bad mouthing Russia. They started it and blah, 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 blah. So there were three people that acknowledged me. And then the fourth would be really acknowledged me was the Russian deputy ambassador Polyansky. But they said they took note of what I said about what I saw, but no one would challenge my credentials. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, it's like I'm not some wackadoo guy. It's this has one show without ever being anywhere. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I'm kind of innocent at it because I just saw what I saw and I reported on it, and I said, "Here's the hit list. Can you here it is. Here's my picture. There's my bio, and it's on this hit list." And this shouldn't be happening. It's not just me, thousands of other people. They've killed 22. There's a story in the Washington Post, and nobody would gainsay that, confute what I was saying. What are they going to do? You know what I mean? Say, well, you're not qualified because you worked in a strip joint in 1978 in Florida, you know, and what city was that? Somewhere, Castleberry, Florida. You know, so there was really nothing they could get me on. You know, they just they were polite, except for the British ambassador who tried to throw me off with this point of order that he came up with as I was getting in, and all he did was get me to get to something that I may have been 4 minutes away of getting into. So because of that, I got to what I really wanted to get to. He made me go to it quickly with a point of order, which backfired for him. I may have not ever gotten to Mariupol, you know what I mean? Or Biden's speech. So I jumped over a lot of stuff that was, you know, this narrative that I had, stopping in, what was it, Sour Mogia. I was going to talk about that monument in Sour Mogia, the great Russian sacrifice, the Soviet sacrifice that you can feel at that monument there, 25, 30 kilometers on a dirt road. You know, before you get to Donetsk, we went off and saw that, and it's like stunning and paralyzing almost, the beauty and the majestic vista that you see, and all these monuments. And it's the turning point of the war, you know, and if they didn't win there, you know, all of these people on that panel would be speaking German today. I was going to say that, but I didn't, then get cut right to the terror that I saw in Donetsk.
Well, I know that it was a great, you know, I watched it. I'm going to share it with the audience here, you know, soon. And I just, I think it's really meaningful, and it's really something that needs to hear, because the West is just not hearing it because of the way they're suppressing the truth about the proxy war. Like everything else, you know, everything's a battle. And speaking of which, suppression, you know, the Assange is not in the mainstream press. It should be. Because Julian Assange is still in Belmarsh prison and still facing extradition to the United States. I kind of wanted to know if you know of any updates on that, and also what your thought was, because Tucker Carlson is about to interview him as well. And so I wanted
actually going to get in there and interview him?
He did go visit him,
I
so
know that. I
yeah.
don't know if they're letting him interview anybody or be interviewed.
Well, I don't know if he'll actually be able to interview. That's remains to be seen, but he probably it was with Stella and then maybe some photos, but who knows? I don't know. It's not released yet. But from what I understand, it's something coming. But what are your thoughts on the updates with Assange and what's going
Well, I
on?
don't know. What kind of thoughts? I know I've been working on this show, Assange Countdown to Freedom, for 7 years, and sometimes you think I'm repeating myself, and because we're on this, pinwheel, man, and
Yeah.
things aren't moving. They're playing games. The British government, and their masters, the U.S., they're playing games. And they're doing what they did. It's a Noriega treatment. You just keep pushing him around from prison to prison. Hopefully dies or he finds God and doesn't say anything and evaporates like Noriega did. Totally different cases, you know what I mean? But he ends up on the CIA. The CIA is pissed at Assange. That's like the worst organization you want pissed at you. It's more than the Defense Department, more than the State Department, more than anything else, local police. It's the CIA. And it's all really, if there was no Vault 7, this prosecution wouldn't be going on today. And the fact of the matter is that the 1917 Espionage Act was written specifically to quell the dissent against U.S. entry into World War I. And so they use it to shut down newspapers or shut down reporters or quiet them. They went after them. No reporter went to jail, but a film producer went to jail because they showed a movie that made the Brits look bad. And then Robert Goldstein, and they killed the IWW, and they put conductors in prison German conductors in prison, Carl Muck from the Boston Symphony, and so many others. Eugene Debs, he's speaking out against the draft. The list goes on, but no German spies. It really wasn't about German spies. It was about us getting into that war and making sure there was no noise. The same way right now, they don't want any noise against the war in Ukraine or supporting or exposing what's going on in Gaza, but it's too late for that. But they certainly did not want anything like the Brits and Europe, much worse, keeping people quiet on what's happening in Ukraine. So look, they don't want someone like Assange out there. They don't want the example of Assange out there. But what he did, that you take a look at that video of the collateral murder. That's the video that you saw yesterday of the rave rally or the rave event concert in Israel. And it was from an Apache helicopter, the same way it was an Apache helicopter that killed all those children and Reuters reporters in Baghdad. So if they get a hold of these guys, that kind of thing, they don't want that. And they're hoping, the Assange example is like a message to people, whoever put out that video yesterday, proving that the Israeli Air Force killed a vast majority of those people, apparently. So they don't want whistleblowers out there. Someone leaked it. And my hat's off to that person that did that, because I'm sure he did not like what he was doing. And maybe there are people with a conscience inside the military, inside these organizations.
It's just sad that we have to hope for that we have to hope that there's somebody with a conscience. I mean, it's just,
right.
Isn't it?
Well, how else would we have found out? I mean, it was a dispute how these people died. Now that I'm sure more is going to come out and pull the curtains back on it and show exactly how so many people died. It just didn't make sense. Look at all the cars they lined up. They couldn't do that with AK-47s that were burnt up. That would take something with much greater firepower, which would be from the Apache helicopter. And they've admitted it. They finally came out and admitted it. They didn't admit it until it was put out there. And so with getting back to Assange, unless there's a big, there's ground support, like you see what's going on in Gaza right now, not enough. There's 300,000 people in Washington, thousands of people every day in front of the UN or the Israeli consulate here in New York. but not enough to push Biden into stopping the arms flow and cutting off. And they could put an end to it right now, but there's not enough. So with Assange, we only have a handful of people showing up at these vigils and demonstrations. I'm there. I mean, on the streets in Washington, 180 days out of last year and 4 months, you know, with this truck and trying to just do something, And we need more people to get out there, because this is an existential threat to the First Amendment, to this fragile ersatz democracy. It's like in the UK, you've got the death of the Magna Carta that is no longer useful. It doesn't breathe. It's a museum piece or a tourist attraction. That's what the Bill of Rights is going to be relegated to real soon if Assange is incarcerated forever at Supermax in Colorado, because that's where he's headed if in fact he gets there. And if there's not enough people on the street making noise, people don't understand it. People who might understand it don't care. Their minds are on Gaza. Their minds are on Ukraine. Their minds are their destroyed neighborhoods, because no money's going into infrastructure. No money's going into jobs. So people don't, if they, you know, they don't think about it. They don't understand the implications of his of a conviction, of what's happening here. And then you got people there just hate him, you know, call him a traitor. They don't go, they're so stupid. And so that's what we're facing. It's monumental odds if he is extradited here for us to beat it back, because you're not going to have the kind of people, the amount of people that you had in DC for that. Not even close. Not even close. You know, you'll have a playground full, maybe. And so that's what really frightens me, him being extradited here. And, you know, who's going to be out there banging and understanding it? And he'll be here for 5 years going through all these motions. And hopefully for them, they'll hope that he dies in that interim.
Well, you know, and you have like 5 minutes left. I'm watching the time really closely because I know you have your own show. We don't want you to be late for it.
No, I've been in a lot of trouble.
So in our last 5 minutes, I just wanted to spend some time talking a minute about the current events in Gaza, but also about your show and who's on it and things that you're doing with your life. So if we could start a little bit with, I have to be honest with you. In my lifetime, I haven't seen anything like this. There have been times when I've literally just wept. You feel, you know, as a person, I'm a geopolitical analyst, you know, as I'm an RT contributor, I work, you know, I'm writing a book right now, I'm doing my other things, and I write articles and op-eds. This is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And I don't know how to even encapsulate it in words sometimes. And
that's exactly how I feel. What you just said, I would say the same thing. How difficult it is to try to you know, process this on a daily basis. I mean, I don't watch any cable shows except for Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera is the best thing out there. Everyone, if they're going to watch television, watch Al Jazeera, and it's heartbreaking. They tell you the truth. If every American was watching Al Jazeera and listening to real discussions about it, when they do have the talk shows, when they do have these interview shows, but the news hour, it's 24 hours of what's happening in Palestine. I mean, it's like you see these kids, you see people strewn out on that highway to Egypt, you know, just laying dead, and babies that are dead and getting one last kiss. It's just, it's nonstop. And I have to pause. You know, I started watching you know, I can only take so much.
I don't watch. I don't even have television, but this is just what we're seeing.
I got to see something. I just can't watch the internet. And so, but if people do have a television and they have any kind of set, you can do it on your computer. You can get Al Jazeera, but the best news coverage is by them, and it's real in real time. You know, but the point is, it is heartbreaking, it is heartrending, it is paralyzing, and it is immobilizing, because you don't know what you can do. You know, it's like watching someone in a cage that's tied up, and you're like in a locked room watching them being whipped or whatever. You know what I mean? Being forced to watch it. That's what we're doing. We're being forced to see this, and we can't do anything. We can't lend them a helping hand. So you feel helpless. And I've never seen anything quite like this in my lifetime. I mean, the Vietnam War, of course, but you didn't see the daily destruction, you know, until later on in the war. And I was young then, you know what I mean? So in my lifetime, I've never seen anything quite like this. And it is difficult. It is difficult to, to even do anything, because I'm thinking it's 6,000 children. They were like, I remember when I was 5 years old, imagine seeing my sister get hit with a bomb. They're us. They're just us. There's no difference, you know, could be here, could be there. It just
I wanted to ask you, because what you do is so important, because you are an activist, you are quite active, you have your own show. And I think it's important for the people listening and watching to make sure they support you. So could you talk about like who your guests are today, what your show is, and how people can find it, what you're doing?
Well, it's live on the fly, and it's a lot of it. I've been doing it for 7 years. You can get it on the WBAI archives, WBAI.org. Our Progressive Radio Network archives. That's on Monday. And I do other shows for WBAI, but the main show is Friday at 3 p.m. And it's at WBAI.org, 3 p.m. Eastern time. You can stream it, or if you're in New York City, you can all the way up to the state capitol. You can listen to it on 99.5 FM. It's got a big antenna. And it's important that station stays alive. And today I have Shay Bowes from RT. Also has a show, a magazine or newspaper called The Islander. The Islander, they've got a big story coming out today where these weapons are being sold on the black market by Zelensky. And we're going to talk about that. Then I have Sam Husseini, who's a Jordanian, Palestinian American, who's going to talk about him giving the business to the State Department at those briefings for the last month. He's been a thorn in their side. And then I have a guy on from Pagina Doce in Buenos Aires, their leading progressive newspaper. My name is Sergio Kiernan. He's the editor there. And he's going to talk about the coming elections in Buenos Aires, where I'm going to be to follow those elections on the 19th of November, and they really have heavy consequences. He told me, you're going to show up on the 19th. It's going to be a democracy. We'll see if Monday, if it's not a state of fascism. So should be interesting. I've been going there very close to those Madres de Plaza de Mayo down there. They've inspired some of my last movements. Those women, those heroic, saintly women who stood up against the military dictatorship back in 75 to 83 and basically brought them down. So that's it. You can also see it, Assange countdown to freedom.com, a lot of it. And then there's, you can see it on Rumble and what's the other one? YouTube, I suppose, for right now. You can see some of that. There's live on the fly right there. And so you can get a lot of it. And it's out there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of the stuff has not been put on the Assange countdown to freedom because I'm backed up. But I've had great guests, Julian Assange on, Cornel West on, the whole gamut, man. Everybody, Dmitry Polyansky has been on, you know what I mean? He's a fascinating guest because he's so well cultured. You know what I mean? Talking about Dostoevsky or talking about Rachmaninoff, the music and the literature of Russia, because a lot of people compare me to that one character in The Idiot, Mishkin, because he was the original Forrest Gump or Zelig. You know what I mean? Popping up in high society. Here I am at the UN and on the Tonight Show. How did that happen? But that's it. Randy Credico live on the fly, or you can follow me on Twitter at Credico Randy.
Before you leave, Randy, I wanted to make sure you knew you received an award. You're an honoree for the Indie Media Awards.
Yeah, for INN.
So keep an eye out on it's the Indie Media Awards on Twitter. You can look up that and see what you got.
They actually they'll send you something. So INN, so Indie News Network. Support independent media, support your show, live on the fly. And there you have it. I mean, Randy, you do so much work and you're very beloved to all of us, especially with your advocacy for bringing more attention to the Assange case, because the mainstream media doesn't want to do it. So thank you for joining us today. And, I'll look forward to being on your show anytime you wish. I was on there before and loved it. And
you were on my show before, weren't you?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So Tara, thank you. And Mr. Reif, thank you from who's in Florida, and thank you. You guys do a tremendous job, and now I got to pack up my dog and go to the station. All right, I got to be there in 30 minutes. I got to take that lousy subway. You're spoiled. You got the great subway in Moscow. I've got one that's like, it's a tunnel. It stinks and there's garbage everywhere and rats and advertising. Go to that Moscow subway system. Each one is a museum. All right.
Bye.
Thank you very much. See you later. Goodbye. I'm running. Bye. Bye.
Okay, so that was Randy Credico. So, I wanted brief before we get into the Claire Daily. We have a Claire Daily clip for everyone. Could you show Randy's just a clip of the UN?
Yes, I can. Un momento. Let me just do that.
Yeah, we'll do that, and then
if I go here and do this.
Okay.
Change. Look at that.
Got it?
I almost know what I'm doing, Tara. Look at that.
You almost know what you're doing.
Almost.
Okay, folks, we've got that coming. So go ahead and play that for a minute.
Yep, I am queuing it up as we speak.
Just 2 minutes, and then we'll go to talk about Claire Daily.
Cool.
First day I was down there in, don't ask, the very first day, what did I see? A university that was shelled with a U.S. Lockheed Martin HIMARS missile. First day I was there, all right? And this happened all week. They hit it. This is their MO. They hit the university, and then EMS personnel show up to attend to the wounded and carry out the dead. And then 20 minutes later, the same place is shelled again to give it maximum damage to the people that were there helping. Now, that was the very first day. The second day I was there was a open air market, similar to what we have. Same HIMARS missiles hit an open air market, just like the one at Union Square down the street over here. That kind of market where women were putting out flowers for the upcoming Easter Sunday in the Russian Orthodox Church. They hit that, and then 20 minutes I was there, I reported on it. I saw the HIMARS missile. I got there a couple hours later, but it was a civilian target that they hit with U.S. missiles, with HIMARS missiles. They did that. And I spoke to the women up front with their flowers, elderly women. A lot of people were killed. And I said, how do you do this? They were putting the flowers back together again. And they said, this is our land. I am staying here. You can kill me. And everybody said the same thing. They don't care for us. They're hitting civilian targets to terrorize us and get us out of here, to take our land and take our resources. They don't care about us at all. And this happened the whole time I was there, including on Easter Sunday. This happened on Easter Sunday, 5:30 in the morning. They did the same thing. Ukrainian forces 8-9 kilometers away. They shelled a Russian Orthodox church, the biggest one there, at 5:30 in the morning, killing some early worshipers. And then later, they did it again 30 minutes, 40 minutes later, and they killed more people. All right, so that's what we are doing with those HIMARS missiles.
So Easter Sunday, that's really awful. And also just in general, he's talking about there, to put it in perspective, he's talking about those missiles he's talking about are American made and coming from the Kiev regime. So they're killing their own population in an ethnic cleansing. So that's what we're looking at in Donbass and Donetsk and Lugansk. And it's really horrifying. And of course, they've now outlawed the Orthodox Church. We had a guest on talking about that last week. They've outlawed a lot of things. So the Ukraine proxy war is still grinding on, although it was announced today that by the Defense Department, there's only $1 billion left for Ukraine. So I don't know what that means, if they're going to still try to push that 100 billion through that they were trying to get through Congress this year, or if that's going to be thrown to the wayside because of the general mood and because of what's happening in the Middle East. Time will tell, but it doesn't look good.
Zelensky's going to have to start rationing cocaine, so yeah. If he's going to make it.
Well, and couple of videos of him like basically saying if the US or the West couldn't give him more money, could they give them credit? I mean, he sounded really desperate, and like somebody posted this funny meme. Hey, here's the gambler on his last day at Vegas.
Yeah.
Kind of cracked me up. Anyway, so on a more serious note, the genocide that is being done by Israel against the Palestinians is continuing day in, day out. Randy and I touched on a little bit, but I saw a speech today that gave me hope that maybe something will shift if enough leaders will please get this to stop. But Claire Daly of the EU satirist, and she gave an incredible speech. So I wanted to share that with all of you today to make sure you saw it. And I've watched it twice because it's worth that. So go ahead and
I mean, Claire Daly just murders a room if given a mic. So, here she is.
Thanks, President. A month has elapsed since the commencement of the unrelenting mass murder of Palestinians in Gaza. It's not a spiral of violence, Frau von der Leyen. It's genocide, openly declared and carried out by the apartheid state of Israel. Starvation, bombing, hospitals, ambulances, journalists, humanitarian routes, 10,000 dead, 1 in 200 Gazans killed, a Palestinian child slaughtered every 10 minutes for a month. And Frau von der Leyen's answer to this graveyard for children is to tell Israel to avoid civilians, be as targeted as you can. Well, that displays some neck. You can't even call for it to stop. You can't even call for a ceasefire. Well, of course you can't, because these crimes against humanity are being carried out with your weapons in your name when you stood with Israel a month ago and you said you'd stand with them now and in the days to come. So don't come in here trying to wipe the blood off with belated concern. It's not just Israel's genocide, it's yours, and The Hague isn't good enough for you.
Next speaker.
Awesome.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker.
Yeah, I know. Next speaker, please. Who would even want to follow her? You can't follow that.
No.
You cannot follow that.
It's like trying to come in after Lenny Bruce. Like, you just give up.
But that was really powerful, because she just laid it all on the line, and the responsibility is with all of us. I mean, history is not going to be kind to any of us here from the West. I mean, the West is firmly on the wrong side of history. They're not doing, we're not doing enough. Marching in the streets seems nothing to change the outcome.
Yep.
And it's unbelievable.
Well,
but
I have another Claire Daly if you want to hear that one.
You're gonna do like a Claire Daly marathon. I love it.
Double feature.
We need to talk about Israel. Joe Biden says that if Israel didn't exist, the US would have to invent it. And he's right. It's a rogue state, vested in ensuring instability in the region and US geopolitical goals. And the result of this, in the last month, it's bombed Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, all the while claiming it's the victim. It's occupied parts of these countries and bombed them so often that we don't even generally give it a mention. And so we've got to where we are today, where they're slaughtering children on an unprecedented scale. Children wrapped in bloodied shrouds in their thousands. Children under the rubble, even now, maimed and terrified, blinded with chemical agents, gasping for food and water. Children screaming over the bodies of their dead parents, "Mama, Mama, wake up, wake up." Well, I, for one, never thought I'd see such scenes. And the governments of the West may continue to shield Israel, but the people everywhere see it for what it is, including large numbers of Jews. The Zionist project is over. A new Middle East of peace and justice will be built.
I love how they're trying to gavel her off as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they try. They often try, but they don't succeed. So, yeah. So that's been the week. It's been a tough one, albeit for those of us that care about humanity. But on another note, what's interesting is that the Ukraine proxy war is now, as I mentioned earlier, that funding is going away. So what's going to happen with the election? We have the Republican debate, and the Republican debate, you know, Trump wasn't there. And so a lot of people just posted Trump won watching the debate. But Vivek did a couple of good things about the endless wars, but he still has a really weird position on Israel and on Gaza. So it's I don't think there's one politician that has been calling it right. And meanwhile, there was a poll done, and 66% of US citizens, Republican and Democrat, they want a ceasefire. They don't want this anymore. They don't want the US funding it. They want participating in it. Meanwhile, you have Joe Biden with, you know, as always, tone deaf, just saying when he was asked, there will be no ceasefire. You know, there will be no thing. So they're talking about a humanitarian pause in some of the corners, but like that is
4 hours. Cool. That's it.
4 hours. That's not.
That's a lunch break for them.
No,
like,
I mean, they're killing people and in mass. I mean, it's and then meanwhile, they keep, if you notice in the media, they keep calling the people that are marching, that are evacuating, they keep calling it a you know, a migration. It's not a migration. If they're being forced to leave their homes and their homeland because it's being bombed to the ground.
There's a word for that.
50,000 are leaving.
We've seen that before. It's called the Trail of Tears. Yeah. You know, Alan McLeod put this up, showcasing like that's literally what this looks like. Like, and this isn't even the worst of it. If I go here, like this lady has to drag her children along this road. Like
for hundreds of miles.
Yes.
We're not talking 20 miles, but they have to go. And on top of it, right before we came on air, those people that were told to evacuate to the south are being bombed again. And they bombed a pediatric.
Women like this, 90 years old.
Yeah, it's horrific.
It's awful.
There's no words. There's no words. Except we need a different government. We need a different world government. We need a different approach instead of the military industrial complex dominating the entire world right now. And that's how we're at. So do we have any comments or anything from earlier when Randy was up?
Let me go back and look. Calls for freeing Assange. You know, he's done a ton of work with that truck.
Yeah.
He's been doing that for a minute too.
Yeah.
Are Russia and China that's really gonna let a dying empire flail around the planet, wreaking havoc everywhere? Well, they're probably saying, so what's new?
That's a good comment. Actually, no, probably not. At some point, this is all going to get really escalated. Right now, as I have said for a month, I think, or longer actually, that the US is trying to egg on a war with Iran and trying to get us into a hot war with Iran. And there's reasons for that, mostly around gas reserves and oil, and domination, of course, over the Middle East. And they're also, again, it's sideways thinking, but this is how the US military thinks. They think by having a hot war with Iran, it will somehow weaken Russia and somehow affect the proxy war in Ukraine. It will not.
Yeah.
It will not weaken Russia. It will not make a difference. It will wreak havoc in the Middle East. And it'll cause a lot of horrible problems and may escalate into actually a world conflict.
Well, and this has been
but again,
brewing for a minute. Israel's propaganda and control of our politicians and state runs deep, you know? So to me, this is only a matter of time, but now it's here.
Yeah, their minister released a tweet that I found from a few years ago talking about how they've been able to lobby to influence legislation in the United States. And you know, bear in mind, 35% of the residents of Israel are Americans, so American Israelis. So you have a very large percent very, very intertwined, thing. I don't know how long BB is going to last, because now with the world kind of turning their back and removing their ambassadors, you see several countries doing that.
Belgium.
That's going to change.
Yeah.
And you see an outcry from the Jewish community, not wanting to have the Zionists be so,
when you saw
aggressive with all
recently,
this.
Israel changed its book so that, if you speak out about them on the internet, they will come lock you up. They've had Israeli high school teachers and senior citizens, and they're just rounding them up too. So
because they're not a democracy. And frankly, the United States isn't much of one either. So, but let's go ahead and we're going to close out the show. I wanted to close out the show talking about INN had some awards, and so they were trying to give recognition to those who have done some great work. And if I don't know if you have the awards that were given out, or
I can pull up the website. It's going to cost some money for the awards, which we always appreciate donations for that. But let me just pull up the honoree list, because there's plenty of amazing names on there. So if you go to,
I really want. Go ahead.
Here,
there you go.
And let me give us our old eyeballs a break and zoom. So tons of people on this list: Kevin Gostola, Alex Rubenstein, Vanessa Beeley, Kyle Anzalone, Brett Wilkins, Jonathan K. Cook, Kit Clarenberg, Eva Bartlett, Sharon Zhang, Whitney Webb, Robbie Yeager. This is 2022's list, right? So let me go to where is, I gotta go here, and then no, I don't want to sub. Here it is. That's the old list, which is equally as good as the new list, which we got Ford Fisher, John Pilger, CJ Hopkins, Julia Conley, Matt Taibbi, Stefania Marizzi, Dan Cohen, Tariq Haddad, Dave Ducamp, Sam Husseini, which you'll see on Randy Credico like in 15 minutes. So Gordon Dimmack, Ozzy Shanda, Randy Credico, here he is right there. Look at that. If we click him, right? Look at this. There he is. He does Live on the Fly. There's his truck. All the places to follow him here. So just a good resource to give to people and be like, here's who you should follow. So
great. Thank you very much, Reade. Thanks to INN. That's really cool. And we shall be back next week, and we'll have a wonderful guest next week that'll be talking about more updates on Gaza. And by then we'll probably have more things to talk about regarding what the US is up to. And I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you so much. Thank you, Reade. Thank you, Indy, Greg, and to all of you that helped put this together. And we will see you next time. Stay cool.